Chapter 786. What kind of concept was 50 to 60 million? It was almost equivalent to 10 half-step kings' net worth. Entering that kind of huge auction, they would be almost invincible. Of course, the premise was that there were no life and death king's parents. After all, although 50 to 60 million was a lot, it was not much for life and death king. A life and death king could casually go to a king-grade forbidden zone, or find some treasures in the starry sky, and sell them for hundreds of millions. But no matter what, 50 to 60 million was a shocking amount of wealth for most of the half-step kings. If they encountered it, they would definitely not let it go. Jin Wanshuang let out a breath and said, "According to what we said before, this Lady Morong will get an extra 10% of the treasures. In other words, we will first take out 10% of the upper-grade spirit stones and give it to her. The remaining 90% will be split among the 11 of us. Does anyone have any objections?" Jin Wanshuang did not let the upper-rank spirit stones go to his head. Keeping promises was the basic requirement of forming a team. If he broke his promise because of a large amount of upper-rank spirit stones, how could he expect others to keep their promises? As the leader of this team, Jin Wanshuang had the obligation to keep his promise. He did not want the team to fall apart because of him, which was not in line with his personal principles. Taking a step back, they had not even explored a third of the ruins, and there would definitely be other treasures later on. There was no need to create irreconcilable conflicts over the first batch of treasures, which was not rational at all. 10% is more than 50 million upper-rank spirit stones. The twin brother was a money grubber, so he was quite reluctant. "What? You two don't plan to keep your promise?" Jin Wanshuang's face sank. How could that be? Although 50 million is a lot, it would only be a few million after splitting it evenly. We two brothers can still see the big picture. The older twin brother grinned. "I'll listen to my brother." The younger twin brother also said, "What about you guys?" Jin Wanshuang looked at the others. "I have no objections. We've already made a deal. Why would we go back on our words? A few million upper-rank spirit stones is not enough for me to throw away my face." The middle-aged woman snorted. The most troublesome ones had been dealt with, so the others did not have any objections. "All right, let's start counting the upper-rank spirit stones." Jin Wanshuang revealed a smile and walked over. Seeing this, Yichen smiled faintly. A darkness force field had earned him 50 million upper spiritual stones. This was a very good deal. Unfortunately, there were times when things did not go as one wished. Just when everyone was about to count the number of upper spiritual stones, a group of people suddenly appeared at the other end of the teleportation formation. This group of people was one less than Yi Chen's group, but the aura they emitted was even stronger. And among them, the leader was the golden-haired young master of the Golden Lion clan, Shi Xiaobao. Shi Xiaobao had a tall stature, at least 2 or 3 meters tall. He had broad shoulders, a golden complexion, and a pair of golden eyes that emitted a resplendent golden radiance. But this alone was not enough to worry Yi Chen. What worried Yi Chen was that among the people standing next to Shi Xiaobao, there were a few that he could not see through back in the tea house. For example, there was a bald fatty with a tattoo on his head, a middle-aged scholar carrying a sword, a middle-aged woman with a sinister aura, and a short old man wearing a raincoat. Apart from them, although Yi Chen had never seen the others besides Shi Xiaobao, none of them could be underestimated. They were not at all inferior to their side, and there were even 1 or 2 that surpassed them. The sudden arrival of the uninvited guests caused Jin Wanshuang's group to tense up. Each of them stared at the other side, and the atmosphere became extremely tense. "I'm afraid we're going to have a big battle," Morong Qingqing said gravely. Yi Chen nodded. "Unless everyone can sit down and divide the spirit stones equally. But that's obviously impossible, so we can only have a big battle." There were too many things that happened in ancient ruins, because of wealth, so it would be strange if there weren't any great battles. Moreover, everyone was already used to this sudden great battle, so they wouldn't have any complaints, nor would they cower in the slightest. "Haha, so many top-grade spirit stones. The heavens are indeed blessing me," Shi Xiaobao. Walking out of the teleportation array, Shi Xiaobao ignored everyone and laughed arrogantly. His golden hair fluttered in the wind like a golden flame. Hee hee, why do I see a few flies? The bald fatty's body moved horizontally, and he stood beside Shi Xiaobao like a lump of meat, trembling incessantly. However, this person's mouth was too sharp, immediately belittling Yi Chen's group. Just like Shi Xiaobao, he did not put them in his eyes, just slapped them to death. There was also a middle-aged woman on Shi Xiaobao's side, although she did not look like the middle-aged woman on Yi Chen's side, and her figure was a bit sturdier. Her aura was a bit similar. Being stared at by her small eyes was like being stared at by a venomous snake. On this side, Jin Wanshuang did not speak, but looked at everyone else. This was not a battle of one person, but a battle of one team against another. He needed to ask everyone's opinion. If a few people did not agree, then there would be no need to fight, since they would not be able to win anyway. Those who block the way shall die. The apathetic youngster who had been silent all this while coldly looked at Shi Xiaobao's group, and spat out these words. Faintly nodding, Jin Wanshuang looked at the others. Those who obstruct us brothers from getting rich are all people who deserve to die. Killing those who deserve to die is our greatest pleasure. The twin brothers had a fiery temperament. Forcing them to retreat was worse than killing them. The younger twin brother could no longer hold back, and was about to attack. His eyes were filled with savagery, and there was no trace of his previous naive appearance. When Yi Chen and Morong Qingqing were invited to the secret pavilion, Yi Chen had already seen this kind of expression. He naturally knew that these two could not be judged by their appearance. That chick is not bad. The yellow-faced man had suffered at Yi Chen's hands. On the way, he did not look at Morong Qingqing with his lustful eyes, only sneaking a few glances. But now his true nature was exposed. His naked eyes constantly scanned the young woman on Shi Xiaobao's right, as if he could see something he should not see through her clothes. I'm old, and I don't have many years left. The only ancient old man sighed and said something unimportant. However, when they heard it, it sounded a bit sinister. Leave that old woman to me. The middle-aged woman did not like the middle-aged woman in front of her. She was too ugly. Now only the yellow-robed woman, Lin Yushuan, and Yi Chen and Morong Qingqing remained. However, Jin Wanshuang retracted his gaze, not intending to ask anything. He couldn't see through the yellow-robed woman, but if she was a kind person, then he would have wasted his eyes. Yi Chen and Morong Qingqing, just from their baleful auras, one could tell that they had killed many people, especially Yi Chen, whose baleful aura was heavier than anyone else's. Jin Wanshuang admitted that he had underestimated Yi Chen. Perhaps this person was even more terrifying than he had imagined. Lin Yushuan was young and frivolous. This kind of person was like a newborn calf that was not afraid of a tiger. Roar! The twin brothers roared savagely. Their footsteps shook the air as their killing intent and savagery filled the air. They were itching to immediately kill their way over. A bunch of ants dares to clamor in front of me? I'll tear you apart alive. Shi Xiaobao's expression was cold and sinister. Shi Xiaobao, I've seen your strength long ago, but I have yet to exchange blows with you. Today, you and I will have a decisive battle. Let's see who will have the last laugh. Lin Yushuan stepped forward. Boasting shamelessly, a youth behind Shi Xiaobao walked out. He looked even younger than Lin Yushuan, around 20 years of age. His face was as white as powder, and he was waving a fan. Whether I'm boasting shamelessly or not, you'll know soon enough. Shi Xiaobao, do you dare to fight me? If not, then leave this place immediately. Lin Yushuan took out his weapon, which was a halberd. Right now the two sides were evenly matched, and both were experts. Whoever backed down first would not only lose face, but also their pride. Experts paid great attention to their pride. Only when facing an undefeatable opponent would they put it away. However, they naturally wouldn't think that their opponent was an undefeatable opponent. How could they back down, not even half a step? A great battle was about to begin. You're not qualified to fight me. Zhao Shiwen, you go fight him. Shi Xiaobao said to the pale-faced youth waving his fan. That's for the best. The pale-faced youth walked out, standing in the center of the battlefield. He slightly raised his head, arrogantly looking at Lin Yushuan. Then let's fight. Lin Yushuan's face was ashen. The radiance in his eyes seemed to have materialized and shot out. as if wanting to pierce through his opponent. Courting death, the pale-faced youth suddenly counterattacked. Let's exchange blows. This wasn't a challenge, but a battle for wealth. How could he just sit and watch the winner be decided? Coincidentally, the middle-aged woman on Yi Chen's side and Shi Xiaobao's side walked out at the same time, slowly approaching each other. When they were about 100 meters away, their bodies instantly turned illusory, as if trying to confuse their opponent. However, when both of them did this, their killing intent became even more awe-inspiring. Roar! Shi Xiaobao's golden hair fluttered as he soared into the sky. Golden demonic energy burst out from his body and swept through the entire palace, causing many people's blood and qi to boil, inwardly aghast. This was a young super expert, as well as the most arrogant young master of the Golden Lion clan. He wouldn't allow others to defy him, and now, he was about to take action. Leave it to me. As the captain of Yi Chen's side, Jin Wanshuang stepped out without hesitation. With each step, the metallic luster on the surface of his body increased by a bit. After 10 steps, his entire body seemed to have turned into a metallic man, emitting a dazzling luster. You guys go and kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. Shi Xiaobao's voice rumbled as he charged at Jin Wanshuang. Boom! The battlefield boiled. Shi Xiaobao's words were akin to igniting a barrel of gunpowder. Everyone's expression turned sinister, revealing their killing intent. Chapter 787. Kill. The indifferent young man found the middle-aged scholar, who was holding a long sword. Both of them were rare experts. Once they started fighting, only sword lights and sword shadows could be seen. It was impossible to see the two of them. Even the surrounding people avoided them. Swordsman was a synonym for attack power. Both of them had similar strength. When they met a swordsman, their momentum would be weaker. When two swordsmen fought with their lives on the line, it was definitely a terrifying scene. I'm old, just a bag of old bones. The weathered old man's figure flashed and floated over to the strange old man in the raincoat. When the old man in the raincoat saw an old man like him, he curled his lips and said strangely, I hate dealing with old men the most. They are old and smelly. Change one, change one. I'm afraid it won't be as you wish. The weathered old man laughed. A black cane appeared in his hand and he attacked. Damn it! The old man's body slid to the side, avoiding this attack. While he was slipping, it actually started to drizzle. The raindrops fell on his raincoat and slid down. The old man gave people the feeling of a ghost in the rain, light and evil. This old man is quite hard to deal with. The weathered old man frowned and started to fight with his opponent. The middle-aged man wanted to find the young girl. But halfway, he was stopped by the bald fatty. He was so angry that his face turned purple. He held a shield in one hand and a spear in the other, fiercely attacking the bald fatty. It seemed like there was an irreconcilable grudge between them. As for the twin brothers, they were a bit unkind. The two of them did not separate from each other. 2 against 1, they faced off against a guy wearing a mask. The elder brother's giant axe was like a falling mountain, while the younger brother's twin blades were like fire and water. The two of them cooperated seamlessly, forcing the masked guy into a difficult situation. He was mumbling something. Among the remaining 3, the yellow-clothed girl randomly found an opponent and started to fight. It seemed like she didn't have much ability. Murong Qingqing's opponent was the young girl that the middle-aged man had his eyes on. The two of them also started to fight. In the end, only Yi Chen was left. It seems like only the two of us are left. On the other side, the skinny middle-aged man who looked like a drying pole looked at Yi Chen with an ugly smile. His skinny fingers even dug his ears. Yeah. Yi Chen smiled faintly. In that case, let's not waste time. I'll let you have 3 moves first. How about it? The skinny man flicked his earwax and smiled. All right then. Yi Chen walked over step by step with a gentle smile on his face. The two seemed to be exchanging pointers, not a life and death battle. Shoo! All of a sudden, Yi Chen took 1 step forward as his Thunder Disaster sword was taken out of its scabbard, slicing through his opponent's body. It was so fast that the air did not even have the time to vibrate. His opponent could not even feel that Yi Chen had already taken out his sword, only seeing his body shake. After doing all this, An ordinary person would have put away their sword, since the opponent was already dead. However, a sneer appeared on the corner of Yi Chen's mouth, as he suddenly turned around and stabbed out. Ding! The cold light clashed, and a figure flew backward. On the other hand, the skinny middle-aged man behind Yi Chen was only a clone. It was just that this clone was extremely plump. From the outside, it was impossible to tell at all. Even using soul power to scan it, one could not find anything. Moreover, at this critical moment, who would have the time to carefully plan and kill the opponent first? Who would have thought that the skinny middle-aged man had already prepared for this? It seemed like his real body was already hiding in a corner before the battle even started. Unfortunately, his opponent was Yi Chen. What kind of person was Yi Chen? His soul power was 5 times that of an ordinary person. Adding on his cautious nature, it had always been him sneak attacking others. Therefore, in Yi Chen's opinion, the skinny middle-aged man's actions were merely a show to him. He would play along with the opponent, since he wouldn't lose anything in the end. Yi Chen's counterattack startled the skinny middle-aged man. The number of people who had died under this method was too many to count. He had already lost count of how many people he had killed, apart from those whose strength was too high to assassinate. Yi Chen was the first person with a peak C of Soul Realm cultivation base to see through this move of his. How could he not be shocked? What? Didn't you say you'd let me have 3 moves? Yi Chen looked at the opponent with a sneer. The skinny middle-aged man retracted his astonishment and smiled. I only said my clone would let you have 3 moves, not my real body. You didn't hear me clearly. Is that so? How about I let you have 3 moves first? You let me have 3 moves first. The skinny middle-aged man was a bit confused. However, thinking of Yi Chen's shrewdness, he still shook his head. No, I'm afraid of being cheated by you. To be honest, I've never seen someone as shrewd as an old fox at your age. Hee, you're overpraising me. Let's see what I can do. Yi Chen suddenly attacked. The Thunder Disaster sword drew a transparent arc in the void, its tip pointing straight at the middle-aged man's forehead. Before the sword arrived, a sharp sword chi had already locked onto the opponent. No matter how many tricks the opponent had, it would be impossible to confuse Yi Chen. I found a tough one. The skinny middle-aged man inwardly cursed his bad luck. Waving his bony palm in the air, a silver-black ghost claw stretched out, covering all the vital points of Yi Chen's body. Ding 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 ding. The two fought fast against fast, and the middle-aged man's strength was not something Yi Chen dared to underestimate. Yi Chen was sure that apart from a small portion of the people present, everyone else's strength was about the same. It would be impossible to win without paying a price. Yi Chen also didn't dare to say that he could easily defeat the middle-aged man, because both sides hadn't used their killing moves yet. They were still at the stage of testing each other's strength. Rumble! 10 battles suddenly erupted in the palace. Jin Wanshuang against Shi Xiaobao, the cold-faced youngster against the middle-aged scholar, Lin Yuxuan against the pale-faced youngster, the middle-aged woman against the middle-aged woman, the weathered old man against the raincoat old man, the twin brothers against the masked man, the yellow-robed woman against the curly-bearded man, Murong Qingqing against the young woman, and Yi Chen against the skinny middle-aged man. The 10 battles were all spread out, each occupying an area. The entire palace had turned into a battlefield. Only the upper-rank spirit stones in the center of the palace, which was enveloped by a spirit array, did not erupt. Fortunately, there was a spirit array there. Otherwise, the superimposed chi strength would inevitably destroy all 500 million upper-rank spirit stones, leaving nothing behind. Apart from this, the palace itself was also protected by a restriction. Therefore, no matter how big the commotion was, it couldn't shake the palace. Whenever someone's attack landed on the palace walls, it would be absorbed by a layer of light without any sound or influence. The battles were too bitter, and everyone was fighting with their lives on the line. This was different from the previous battles. Among the 10 battles, which one of them wasn't concealing their strength? Each of them was a rare powerhouse under life and death realm with countless killing moves and trump cards. Of course, the most magnificent battle was naturally between Jin Wanshuang and Shi Xiaobao. Both of them were at the top of their respective squads. At this moment, they were no longer holding back, displaying everything they had learned and attacking each other with all their might. Lion King Claw. Shi Xiaobao furiously roared. His right hand turned into a huge lion claw and fiercely struck at Jin Wanshuang. The energy carried by the claw pierced through metal and stone, causing space to distort. Clang! Jin Wanshuang didn't hold back. He extended his palm and clenched it into a fist. This fist was shining with a silvery radiance, as if it was forged from silver. However, no one would think of it as silver, because this fist was countless times harder than silver. Even diamond would not be able to compare to it. Amidst a loud sound, Jin Wanshuang's fist shattered the Lion King claw and kicked at Shi Xiaobao's head. Courting death, Shi Xiaobao stretched out his left hand and grabbed Jin Wanshuang's ankle. Exerting strength in his arm, he lifted Jin Wanshuang and spun him several times in the air. An ordinary person would have long since become dizzy and lose all their battle strength, let alone the ability to counterattack. However, Jin Wanshuang was not an ordinary person. As if he couldn't feel the spinning, his fists repeatedly struck Shi Xiaobao's protective Zhen Yuan, causing his blood and qi to boil. Scram! Shi Xiaobao furiously roared and threw Jin Wanshuang. With a slap, Jin Wanshuang's feet stomped on the palace wall and borrowed the rebound force to attack Shi Xiaobao again. His strength and reaction speed were truly frightening. Roar! Shi Xiaobao couldn't endure this kind of attack and finally reverted to his true form. The air suddenly distorted, and a 12-meter-long golden lion appeared in front of everyone. This golden lion had 4 pillar-like limbs and sharp claws. Its golden mane was draped behind its head, shining with a golden radiance, as if it was forged from gold. Compared to the silver on Jin Wanshuang's body, the two colors were distinct. One gold, one silver. Roar! Shi Xiaobao roared again and suddenly leaped up, attacking Jin Wanshuang. His huge body allowed him to take countless steps forward with a single step. With a flicker, he appeared above Jin Wanshuang's head and ruthlessly stomped down with the pressure of Mount Tai. Dream on! Jin Wanshuang crossed his arms above his head, blocking the claws. Creak! The two were in a deadlock. After reverting to his true form, Shi Xiaobao became more and more violent. How could he tolerate such a situation? With a slight movement of his right claw, his huge head reached down and bit at Jin Wanshuang's head. If he was bitten, it wouldn't be as simple as a light injury. He would definitely be split in two. However, Jin Wanshuang didn't only have this much ability. His eyes turned silver, and his hair stood up like a silver hedgehog. Resisting the pressure, he clenched his left fist and punched at one of Shi Xiaobao's huge teeth, producing an intense sound of metal colliding. Shi Xiaobao was forced back a step, and cracks appeared on his teeth. He couldn't help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. This was the first time he had suffered a loss. Apart from Shi Xiaobao and Jin Wanshuang's side, the others were also in a miserable state. Although they weren't as majestic as this place, they were exceptionally murderous. The cold-faced youngster and the middle-aged scholar had already exchanged hundreds of moves. In these hundreds of moves, both sides had suffered a small loss. After all, in a fight between sword artists, the moment they saw a flaw they would strike it. Using speed to fight speed, the slightest flaw would be fatal. The cold-faced youngster's shoulder was struck by a sword, and there was a bloody mark on his chest. On the other hand, the middle-aged scholar's hair was disheveled, and his abdomen and leg were both struck by a sword. The two were evenly matched, and it seemed like they didn't know each other well. It was still too early to decide the victor. However, in a fight between the same level, the victor could only be decided in the later stages. Only then would the small advantages and disadvantages be magnified to the point that they couldn't be ignored. However, as time passed, some people began to fall into a disadvantageous position. The first to fall into a disadvantageous position was the yellow-faced man. His opponent was a bald fatty with a tattoo on his head. This fatty was extremely hard to deal with. Just like the fat on his body, the Zhen Yuan he had cultivated was extremely slippery. When the spear stabbed forward, it was soft but not strong. The yellow-faced man became more and more powerless, and many bloody marks appeared on his body. He was suppressed to the point where he couldn't even raise his head. Dying by my hands? It's not bad to say it out loud. The bald fatty seemed to be handling the situation with ease. Up until now, it seemed he hadn't used his full strength. His palms were the size of palms, and as they slammed out, a dense mass of thick vibrational energy could be felt. The yellow-faced man had suffered from this vibrational energy, and every time they exchanged blows, he could feel minute injuries appearing in his body. Over time, these minute injuries would accumulate, and it would be terrifying. Die! The yellow-faced man suddenly threw out the shield in his hand, slashing at the bald fatty's head while blocking the latter's vision. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the yellow-faced man suddenly leaped up, and his body split into three. The three of them attacked at the same time, creating layers of spear shadows. Ehe! Unexpectedly, the bald fatty's movement technique was 10 times better than what the yellow-faced man had imagined. This kind of movement technique, let alone a fatty, even a person as light as a swallow might not be able to display it so elegantly. However, the bald fatty gave people a feeling of elegance. His figure flashed, and the bald fatty dodged the shield, suddenly appearing below the yellow-faced man. His eyes narrowed, and his small eyes couldn't be seen anymore as he pushed out both hands. The yellow-faced man had split into 3 figures, and they had a confusing effect. The bald fatty indeed couldn't see through them, so he pushed out 2 palms. Out of the 3 2 hit, the success rate was higher than 50%. If he didn't hit, then it could only be said that the yellow-faced man's luck was too good. In fact, the yellow-faced man's luck wasn't that good. Out of the 2 figures that were hit, one was his real body. Puff! The bald fatty's fleshy palm was plump and strangely powerful. The yellow-faced man was hit in the crotch, and his whole body was thrown high into the air. His lower part was smashed into a pile, and his stomach was pierced through. Due to the powerful pressure, the yellow-faced man's blood didn't come from his mouth, but from the top of his head. His head suddenly exploded, turning into a bloody mist. At this point, Yi Chen's side had lost 1 person. This wasn't the end. The battle between the middle-aged woman and the middle-aged woman also ended. The one who died was the middle-aged woman on Yi Chen's side. I've roamed the Jianghu for so many years, but this is the first time I've met someone more sinister than me. I deserve to die. The middle-aged woman stood upright on the ground. Her back was full of silver needles, and the real fatal wounds were the 2 silver needles on the soles of her feet. It turned out that the middle-aged woman on Shi Xiaobao's side had placed the silver needles on the ground from time to time during the battle, waiting for her opponent to step on them. Such a small trick couldn't have been hidden from the middle-aged woman on Yi Chen's side. However, she had already refined the silver needles into her body, forcing them out from the soles of her feet, and hiding them in the ground around her. Therefore, the one who lost this battle wasn't because they were weak, but because they weren't as sinister as the other side. They hadn't expected that the other side would use such an unimaginable trick. In the blink of an eye, Yi Chen's side lost 2 people. In terms of numbers, the balance shifted towards Shi Xiaobao's side. The strength of both sides was about the same, and Yi Chen's side seemed a bit weaker. Losing 2 people at once was simply a devastating disaster. It was like a tug-of-war. Both sides were evenly matched, but as long as the other side exerted a little more strength, it would lead to an overwhelming victory. Chapter 788. You 2 brothers should be barbarians, right? I've never fought with such a powerful half-step barbarian king. Let's see if your brute force is stronger, or if my palm energy is stronger. The bald fatty swept his gaze, and fell on the twin brothers who were besieging the masked man. Both of them were powerful half-step kings. 2 against 1. Even if the masked man's strength reached the heavens, he was still beaten to the point of spurting out blood. If not for the fact that the 2 brothers had too few variations in their moves, the masked man would have long since been chopped into meat paste. With his body as light as a swallow, the bald fatty floated to the masked man's side and extended his chubby palm, blocking the elder brother's axe. The elder brother was called Daer Xiong, and the younger brother was Daer Ba. In the deep-sea barbarian race, they were known as the Daer brothers. They were the most famous geniuses of the race. Unable to bear the rules of the barbarian race, the 2 brothers had come out to roam the world. Relying on their powerful defense and combined strength, They had been doing very well, and had never suffered a loss. Seeing a fat guy like a big white pig running over, and stopping the two brothers from joining hands, Daer Xiong was enraged. Wielding the axe with one hand, he doubled his strength. Creak! The pressure on the bald fatty increased sharply. His knees slightly softened, and the ground beneath his feet vibrated, producing a sound of metal twisting. Good heavens! His strength is close to 1,000,000 Jin. The bald fatty's eyes widened as blue veins popped out on his forehead. With a roar, he inflated like a balloon and sent Daer Xiong flying. Brother! Daer Ba turned to look at Daer Xiong. Daer Xiong waved his hand and said, I'll leave the masked man to you. I'll deal with this big white pig. Remember, don't ruin the reputation of us Daer brothers. Of course not. My blood is boiling. Daer Ba turned his head, and looked at the masked man with a different gaze. His eyes were like two flames, burning fiercely as a wild power gradually awakened in his body. Fuck. Madman. The masked man was in a miserable state. These two brothers had incomparably powerful fleshly bodies, no different from monsters. Perhaps even body refining experts of the same level would be somewhat inferior to them. Seems like I have to use 20% of my strength. A dangerous light flashed in the masked man's eyes. On this side, the bald fatty helped the masked man share some of the pressure. On the other side, the middle-aged woman went to help the curly-bearded man deal with the yellow-clothed woman. She could see that the yellow-clothed woman's strength was unfathomable, and the curly-bearded man was most likely not her opponent. If the other party got serious, the curly-bearded man would be finished. As for Shi Xiaobao, the middle-aged scholar, and the raincoat old man, they didn't need her help. The others' opponents weren't very strong, so she didn't bother to consider them. Oh, another one. Are you trying to bully me with numbers? The yellow-robed woman lightly patted with her slender palm. Not only was the curly-bearded man's fierce strength neutralized, but his body was also pushed back by a gentle force, causing him to stagger. With a faint smile, the yellow-robed woman drew a circle in the air with her left hand, and all the silver needles were fixed there. Soft, profound meaning. The middle-aged woman walked over. Not bad. You've also comprehended the soft ultimacy, right? The woman in yellow said. The middle-aged woman didn't answer directly. She said to the curly-bearded man, You've comprehended the profound of toughness, while I've comprehended the profound of gentleness. Let's work together to deal with her. All right. The curly-bearded man didn't hesitate at all. The threat that the yellow-robed woman gave him was too great. Her aura was like maggots in one's bones. Once touched, it would be hard to get rid of. He didn't know how much power she had used, but he himself had already used 90% of his power. The reason why he didn't use his full power was because if his power increased, the opponent's power would also increase. He didn't dare to use all of his power. Since the middle-aged woman proposed to work together, he naturally wouldn't refuse. The two of them stood on the left and right, vaguely surrounding the yellow-robed woman. The yellow-robed woman ignored them and said with a smile, It seems like if I don't use some of my true power, I'll be beaten to death by you too. Bring it on. The middle-aged woman circulated her Zhen Yuan and focused her mind. Through her body, one could see that inside her body, there were countless silver needles following her meridians to her fingertips, soles of her feet, knees, and elbows. It was as if her body was a weapon that could shoot out silver needles from anywhere and kill people. Compared to the hidden killing intent here, the battle on the other side was much fiercer. The two sides were Lin Yuxuan and the pale-faced youngster. Since Lin Yuxuan dared to call himself Shi Xiaobao, he naturally had some ability. The bronze halberd in his hand danced like an azure dragon baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. The azure dragons roared and released a majestic aura that surrounded the pale-faced youngster. The pale-faced youngster's fighting style was similar to his appearance, leaning towards the feminine side. However, his feminine side was different from the yellow-robed woman's. The yellow-robed woman's feminine side gave off a feeling of hidden needles, while the pale-faced youngster's feminine side was more domineering. Waving his fan, the pale-faced youngster fanned away the azure dragon halberd lights. At the same time, his left hand wasn't idle either, occasionally giving Lin Yuxuan a sneak attack. His palm energy was unceasing, and the aftereffects were strangely strong. Water-like ripples spread out in the void, affecting Lin Yuxuan's follow-up movements. Soaring dragon breaking water. Lin Yuxuan roared. His whole body rose from the ground and thrust the 3-meter-long bronze halberd forward. With an indomitable will, the azure dragon halberd light soared into the sky. Come at me. The pale-faced youngster waved his fan 3 times at the azure dragon halberd light, and the two brushed past each other. Puff! Spurting out a mouthful of blood, Lin Yuxuan staggered and landed behind the pale-faced youngster. The pale-faced youngster didn't have a good time either. There was a cut on his shoulder with blood spurting out. One move. Both of them were injured. Rumble. In the sky above the palace not far away, an intense aura exploded, radiating in all directions. One side was pure white, overbearing and condensed, while the other side was ink-black, deep and gloomy. The two combatants were the young woman and Morong Qingqing. One cultivated a pure and fierce martial art, while the other cultivated a dark martial art. It could be said that they were evenly matched. Neither of them could do anything to the other, and could only clash again and again, hoping to suppress the other in terms of endurance. Dark force field. While retreating, Morong Qingqing's body suddenly flickered with purplish-black lightning, and a distorted force field enveloped the young woman. Puff! This force field contained a powerful repulsive force. Originally, the young woman shouldn't have been injured by this repulsive force. However, the two of them had clashed countless times, and were already somewhat exhausted. Adding on that last clash, her blood and qi were still boiling, and she didn't have time to adjust her condition. Who would have thought that Morong Qingqing still had this hidden card? Spurting out a mouthful of blood, the young woman was sent flying. Come back! Morong Qingqing's right hand made a grabbing motion in the air, forcibly pulling the young woman over. She used dark gravity. Don't go too far. The white Zhen Yuan on the young woman's body started burning like a white sacred flame. With a shout, she punched at Morong Qingqing, and white light shone brightly. Swish! A pair of black wings suddenly stretched out from Morong Qingqing's back. Black qi surged, and she disappeared in front of the young woman. That invincible punch naturally missed. Not good. The young woman hurriedly turned around and punched. Pung! Morong Qingqing was blasted back, and the young woman spurted out another mouthful of blood. Richlight Oceanspan was a gathering place for experts. It could be said that experts were as common as clouds. Foursquare Island was one of the few flourishing islands in Richlight Oceanspan. Thus, every island here was naturally a gathering of experts. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the two sides fighting in the palace were all elites of Foursquare Island. Once they returned to their respective territories, they would be near invincible existences under life and death realm. Unfortunately, when experts met experts, invincible would become not so easy. For example, the skinny middle-aged man fighting with Yi Chun was an ordinary expert. If placed in True Spirit Continent, even if he didn't rank in the top 5, he would at least rank in the top 10. However, he was also unlucky to run into Yi Chun. His battle skills were worthless in front of Yi Chun, and his display of weakness was also useless in front of Yi Chun. In any case, Yi Chun was the kind of person who had no weaknesses. If one wanted to defeat him, one would have to use overwhelming superiority. Apart from this, there was no other way. The skinny middle-aged man was forced into a panic by Yi Chen's mysterious sword arts. His mysterious movement technique had become his trump card, and he couldn't gain the slightest upper hand. I don't believe it. The skinny middle-aged man was enraged. His body split into 9, and the 9 figures surrounded and attacked Yi Chen. Sometimes 2 against 1, sometimes 3 against 1. Sometimes he sent a clone to his death, fighting for an opportunity for the other clones and the main body. Go! Yi Chen leaped high and pointed with his left sword finger. Clang! 9 sword shadows shot out. Puff 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 puff. The middle-aged man's clones were swept clean, and his main body retreated several steps. Die! Right at this moment, a skinny middle-aged man appeared in the void behind Yi Chen. Meanwhile, the main body, which had been pushed back several steps, turned into green smoke with a pung sound. It turned out that the doppelganger secret art cultivated by the skinny middle-aged man was an extremely powerful heaven-grade mid-rank secret art. Not only could it create a doppelganger, it could also create a fake body. Apart from not having any flesh or bones, the fake body was almost no different from the main body. The only weakness was that condensing a fake body required 40% of his Zhen Yuan. The ghost's claw was like lightning as the middle-aged man clawed through Yi Chen's head. Not right. The middle-aged man's expression changed. The Yi Chen he had clawed through did not have a real body, and was just a void. You have a cloning secret art, and I have a shadow profound martial art. The main body appeared behind the middle-aged man, and Yi Chen stabbed out with his sword, piercing through the middle-aged man's head, and coming out from the middle of his eyebrows. Swoosh! Pulling out the sword, Yi Chen quickly retreated, while the middle-aged man fell on his back. This was his main body, not a clone or fake body. He did not expect that Yi Chen had also comprehended a shadow profound, and it was so profound that even he could not see through it. Huff! Landing on the ground, Yi Chen let out a breath of turbid air and thought to himself. It was not easy at all. In the battle with the middle-aged man, Yi Chen did not use his trump card, because the middle-aged man had too many clones, and he could not lock onto any of them at all. The latter would not give him the time to use it, and forcefully using it would only be a waste of Zhen Yuan. Of course, Yi Chen was confident that he could kill the middle-aged man with bewitching mirror shattering, but he did not want to reveal it yet. Chapter 789. After killing the skinny middle-aged man, Yi Chen stood in place, and did not go to help anyone, because there was no one on his side who needed help. Jin Wanshuang was fighting Shi Xiaobao, and the latter still had the upper hand. The cold-faced youngster was fighting against the middle-aged scholar. Both of them were sword artists, and if Yi Chen went to help, it would only make the cold-faced youngster unhappy. As for Lin Yuxuan, it was better to forget about it. This person was extremely arrogant, so how could he accept the help of others? The twin brothers had strange and unfathomable characters, so it was better not to interfere. As for the yellow-robed woman, no matter how Yi Chen looked at it, it was her opponent who needed help. If he went, it would only be superfluous. Moreover, Morong Qingqing had also gained the upper hand, suppressing the young woman. It seemed that the battle would be settled after a while. In the end, the battle between the old man and the raincoat old man was a bit confusing. The old man's style was fast, precise, and accurate, while the raincoat old man's style was the same as his attire, strange and inexplicable. Sometimes it was better to attack in a straight line, but he always chose an arc. Sometimes when it was necessary to clash head-on, he would retreat with all his might, and when it was necessary to retreat, he would attack with all his might. In short, it could not be speculated with common sense. Retracting his gaze, Yi Chen turned around and looked at the small mountain of upper-grade spirit stones at the center of the palace. The reason this astonishing amount of upper-grade spirit stones could be preserved for so many years was directly related to the formation below. If Yi Chen's guess was correct, this formation should be called the Spirit Locking Formation, which could lock spirit qi within the formation and not let it leak out. Apart from locking spirit qi, the Spirit Locking Formation also had a powerful defensive ability. Once the qi surging back and forth in the palace rushed over, it would immediately be deflected by the formation's power, unable to shake it in the slightest. However, the Spirit Locking Formation was, after all, not a defensive formation. After suffering countless attacks, it became unstable and flickered. Yi Chen didn't dare to break open the array and collect the upper-grade spirit stones. He was afraid that once the array was broken, the upper-grade spirit stones inside would be shattered by the qi energies coming from all directions. If he were to shatter more than 500 million upper-grade spirit stones, he wouldn't be able to forgive himself. Therefore, even if he had nothing to do, he could only watch from the side without doing anything. 4 symbols Sky Absolute Sword Art. Limitless Death Sword. The confrontation between the two peak sword artists attracted Yi Chen's attention. The middle-aged scholar and the cold-faced youngster both used their killing moves, preparing to decide the victor and the loser. The middle-aged scholar's killing move contained 4 elements: wood profound, metal profound, fire profound, and water profound. Of course, these 4 profounds weren't fused, but rather separated and complemented each other. 4 consecutive sword strikes cut off all of the cold-faced youngster's paths of retreat and advance, giving off an aura of extermination. Meanwhile, the cold-faced youngster's killing move fused the earth profound and metal profound, carrying the weight of earth and sharpness of metal. It didn't need many transformations. Once the sword pierced out, even gods and ghosts wouldn't be able to escape. It aimed at the middle-aged scholar's flaw. Amazing. Either one of them has the strength to compete with me. If I don't use bewitching mirror shattering, it will be almost impossible for me to defeat them. Even if I use it, I only have a 70% chance of defeating them. Yi Chen's mind turned quickly, analyzing the two's strength and comparing it with his own. In the blink of an eye, the two's killing moves collided with each other, and then thousands of cold stars burst out. Even Yi Chen couldn't figure out what had happened in a split second, and could only speculate based on the trajectory of the thousands of cold stars. Puff! The cold stars faded, and a stream of blood sprayed 7 or 8 feet high. The middle-aged scholar's head was raised up, and on his neck, there was a horrifying sword mark. His throat had been cut, and his spine was strangely broken, unable to support the weight of his head. In the confrontation of killing moves, the middle-aged scholar was the first to die. Yi Chen then looked at the cold-faced youngster. The cold-faced youngster's injury was very serious. For an ordinary person, this would be a fatal injury. His left and right chest were pierced, and his 2 thighs were also cut with deep sword marks. Blood spurted out crazily, and his whole body seemed to be bathed in blood. One dead, one seriously injured. This is a battle between swordsmen. Yi Chen sighed. Clang! After killing the middle-aged scholar, the cold-faced youngster's body went limp. His longsword fell to the ground, and he knelt on both knees, spurting out a huge mouthful of blood. His hair was drenched in sweat and blood. At this moment, not to mention a half-step king, even an astral-reaching expert could easily kill him. The injuries on his thighs and right chest couldn't be considered fatal. However, the injury on his left chest was extremely fatal. If not for the slightest deviation, his heart would have been pierced, and he would have died. It could be said that his survival was 70 to 80% luck. This middle-aged scholar was the most frightening sword artist he had ever encountered, and had the possibility of killing him. Die! Right at this moment, a huge lion claw suddenly attacked the cold-faced youngster. The huge lion claw shone with a golden luster, and its owner was naturally Shi Xiaobao in his true form. It turned out that Shi Xiaobao and Jin Wanshuang had both been blown back by the clash just now, and Shi Xiaobao had been blown back by the cold-faced youngster. Seeing that the cold-faced youngster had killed the middle-aged scholar, and was also heavily injured, Shi Xiaobao casually swiped his claw, wanting to kill him. The cold-faced youngster didn't even have the strength to raise his eyes, let alone defend with his sword. If there were no mishaps, his death was already decided. Clang! However, a mishaps occurred. A longsword blocked Shi Xiaobao's claw. It was Yi Chen. You're courting death. Shi Xiaobao's huge lion head spat out human words as he glowered at Yi Chen. Yi Chen faintly smiled. We're enemies. Since we're enemies, I can't let you have your way. The reply to Yi Chen was a furious roar. Shi Xiaobao's body twisted, and his other claw swiped at Yi Chen like lightning. Go back. Yi Chen held his sword with both hands. A black lightning ball condensed on the blade and instantly exploded, sending Shi Xiaobao flying. Dozens of golden hairs danced in the air. Dong! After returning to his true form, the lion claw was Shi Xiaobao's toughest part. Yi Chen's sword didn't injure him, but when he was sent flying into the air, a silver silhouette shot over and punched his chest, issuing a drum-like sound. After this punch, Jin Wanshuang didn't get greedy, and immediately retreated to avoid Shi Xiaobao's counterattack. Sure enough, after receiving this powerful punch, Shi Xiaobao's mouth and nose leaked a large amount of blood. However, what he did first was not to temporarily dodge, but to fiercely counterattack. Under the pain, Shi Xiaobao's counterattack was even crazier than his all-out attack. Unfortunately, how could Jin Wanshuang give him such an opportunity? Failing his counterattack, Shi Xiaobao was sent flying backward. His 4 claws landed on the ground, and there was a small fist imprint on his chest. Blood flowed out of his 7 apertures, indicating that he had suffered a serious internal injury. If he wasn't a genius of the Golden Lion race with the noblest peak high-ranked bloodline and an incomparably tyrannical fleshly body, even if he didn't die from this punch, he would be heavily injured. However, his strength was similar to Jin Wanshuang's, and with enough time, he had the confidence to grind Jin Wanshuang to death. But now that he was injured, he was definitely not Jin Wanshuang's opponent. Turning his head to look at the others, Shi Xiaobao turned silent. Apart from the rain-robed old man, the others had either encountered an opponent that was hard to determine, or had an opponent that was as unfathomable as the rain-robed old man. The situation was not as good as he had imagined. If this continued, they would be annihilated one by one. Retreat! Shi Xiaobao roared and shot toward the teleportation array. Swoosh! Swoosh! Just as Shi Xiaobao's voice faded, 2 people flashed over. One was a pale-faced young lady, and the other was a blood-soaked masked man. These 2 had encountered extremely powerful opponents. The young lady's opponent was Morong Qingcheng, who was extremely fast and possessed a mysterious dark martial art. The masked man's opponent was Daer Ba, a monster with an undying fleshly body. Therefore they had long since thought of retreating. Time to retreat. Hee, your strength is not bad. This old man will not play with you anymore. The rain-robed old man shuttled through the rain, his figure flickering erratically as he shook off the weathered old man, and flashed toward the teleportation array, leaving behind countless afterimages. The middle-aged lady saw that the situation was not right, and abandoned the curly-bearded man. The pale-faced young man was rather unlucky. His path of retreat coincided with the bald fatties. The latter's movement technique was too powerful, and Daer Xiong did not manage to hit him. Instead, his axe chopped down on the pale-faced young man's body, splitting him into 2 from head to toe. Seeing that most of the enemies had fled, Jin Wanshuang and the rest did not stop them. As the saying goes, don't chase a cornered enemy. If you force the enemy into a desperate situation, you would inevitably face the enemy's final counterattack. Everyone's strength was equal, and one side's final counterattack would more or less increase the number of casualties. Let's go! The teleportation array had already been activated, flickering with radiance. Shi Xiaobao coldly said. The masked man said, there's one more. He looked at the curly-bearded man. Shi Xiaobao shook his head. He won't be able to live. At the last moment, the yellow-robed lady became slightly serious. Her body turned into a stream of light and coiled around the curly-bearded man like a huge yellow snake. Clatter! The curly-bearded man's body emitted continuous popping sounds. As soon as the yellow-robed lady left, his body softened and collapsed on the ground like a pile of meat. In just a moment, the curly-bearded man's bones were completely shattered. The yellow-robed lady's strength shocked everyone. Buzz! The teleportation array flickered, and Shi Xiaobao and the rest disappeared from the palace. I owe you my life, the cold-faced youngster said to Yi Chen. He's also my enemy. Yi Chen sheathed his sword. Those are 2 different matters. This life of mine, I will return it to you. Saying so, the cold-faced youngster sat cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes to begin healing. Yi Chen faintly smiled and moved closer to the others. The silver luster on Jin Wanshuang's body receded as he sized up everyone. Seeing that the middle-aged woman and the yellow-faced man had died, he couldn't help but sigh. The 10 people he had invited were all experts, but facing an elite like them, casualties were unavoidable. Fortunately, the enemies had more casualties. 10 had come, but only 6 were left. 4 had died, which was double their numbers. Even if they won this battle, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Chapter 790. The dead could not come back to life. Moreover, they did not have any deep feelings for the middle-aged woman and the yellow-faced man. They were not even friends, so they naturally would not feel sad. Since they were already dead, the treasures still had to be divided. What was undeniable was that with the 2 dead, each of them would get a bigger share of the treasures. Everyone's emotions were complicated. Clearing his throat, Jin Wanshuang said, Right now there are 9 of us left. Lady Morong will get 20% of the treasures, and we will each get 10%. Now let's break the formation and count the upper-grade spirit stones. As he spoke, Jin Wanshuang arrived before the spirit lock array. Ha! Silver light overflowed from his palm, as Jin Wanshuang's palm slammed into the void. A ring of light yellow light blossomed in the void. It was the light of the spirit lock array. As Jin Wanshuang's palm slammed down, the array's light fluctuated, dimming and brightening at times. Jin Wanshuang had long since had experience in this aspect. His palm pressed against the array's light and swiped horizontally. Pop! The spirit lock array was broken, and the dense spirit chi within the array was released, spreading out in all directions. In an instant, the entire palace was filled with spirit chi, making it slightly moist. Hee. The twin brothers could not help but smile. The previous battle had made them extremely satisfied, and now, there was so much wealth waiting for them. Life's happiness was nothing more than this. Just like the twin brothers, everyone revealed a knowing smile. The killing intent left over from the great battle also vanished like smoke in thin air. As for the middle-aged woman and the yellow-faced man's deaths, they had long since forgotten about them. At this moment, no one was thinking about them. All they were thinking about was how many high-grade spirit stones they could get. Everyone start counting. Jin Wanshuang nodded to everyone. With their powerful soul power, everyone's counting speed was extremely fast. In just a short while everyone had finished. I have 81 million here. I have 75 million here. 84 million. Apart from the indifferent young man, who was still recovering from his injuries, the 8 of them added up to a total of 648 million, which was more than 100 million more than the 500 million. This was definitely a great harvest. Even if they did not gain anything from this, it was still a rewarding trip. Jin Wanshuang said with a smile. A total of 648 million. 10% is 64 million and 800,000. Lady Morong will take 20%, so it will be 129,600,000. Now everyone can take your share. Don't take more but don't take less either. It's more than I imagined. Yi Chen's upper-grade spirit stones had already surpassed 30 million, reaching a total of 36 million. With the addition of 64 million and 800,000, he had over 100 million. Such a huge amount of wealth was something even the majority of 6th-grade sects couldn't compare to. If not for the upper-grade storage ring he had obtained in the Blackwater Alliance's crystal vault, a mid-grade storage ring wouldn't have been able to store so many upper-grade spirit stones. Morong Qingqing's harvest was the most. This was all thanks to her dark force field, which allowed her to obtain 2 portions of the wealth. After collecting their own upper-grade spirit stones, everyone's gazes fell on the 7 chests of energy crystals. The distribution of energy crystals was a bit complicated, because there were too many types of energy crystals, and everyone's needs were different. However, energy crystals were the same as spirit stones, and could also be used for cultivation. For example, for those who cultivated fire Jin Yuan, using fire energy crystals to cultivate would have a better effect than using spirit stones of the same grade. Moreover, it could increase the destructive power of the fire Jin Yuan, as well as contain more fire attribute energy. First, let's count how many energy crystals we have. Jin Wanshuang frowned and said. Soon, the number of energy crystals was also counted. There were 70,000 upper-grade energy crystals in total, 10,000 per chest. Among them, there were 8,000 gold energy crystals, 10,000 wood energy crystals, 12,000 water energy crystals, 11,000 fire energy crystals, 13,000 earth energy crystals, 7,000 wind energy crystals, 5,000 thunder energy crystals, 2,000 light energy crystals, 2,000 dark energy crystals. There were energy crystals of all 9 major attributes, and the quantity varied according to their rarity. The rarest ones were naturally light and dark. Jin Wanshuang said, 70,000 energy crystals, divided equally among the 9 of us. Each of us will get 7,777 crystals. I cultivate metal element Jin Yuan, and I don't see anyone cultivating metal element Jin Yuan in the team. Thus, I will take 7,777 metal element crystals. I want 2,000 dark energy crystals. The rest doesn't matter. Morong Qingqing also said. Yi Chen said, I don't care about any energy crystals. The Zhen Yuan he cultivated did not contain any attribute, and was the purest Zhen Yuan. In this way, the distribution was much easier. Among the 9, there weren't many who cultivated attributed Zhen Yuan. Moreover, they didn't overlap, so there was no conflict between them. Yi Chen took a bit of each attributed energy crystal. Even if he didn't cultivate, he could still use these crystals as a form of wealth. After distributing the energy crystals, there was nothing left in the palace. Alright, the distribution is done. Everyone can rest here for a while and heal your injuries. Jin Wanshuang said. Among the 9, the one with the heaviest injuries was the cold-faced youngster, followed by Lin Yushuan. Jin Wanshuang and Shi Xiaobao had also suffered some light injuries. The remaining 6 were not injured, but they needed to replenish their Zhen Yuan. At this moment, time was not pressing, so no one wasted precious pills. Instead, they sat cross-legged to recover their Zhen Yuan. Half a day later, apart from the cold-faced youngster, everyone had recovered to their peak state. A day later, the cold-faced young man also stopped healing. His injuries weren't something that could be healed in a short period of time. However, with the help of precious medicinal pills, he was almost fully recovered. He didn't want to waste everyone's time, so he stopped healing. Let's go. Jin Wanshuang waved his hand and walked out of the palace. There were 2 paths outside the palace, one to the left and the other to the right. Everyone chose the path on the right. Following the path, they gradually arrived at the core of the ruins. The surroundings were filled with layers of buildings, and the atmosphere was gloomy. Morong Qingqing suddenly whispered into Yi Chen's ear. I saw a blurry shadow just now. It wasn't an illusion. Oh, Yi Chen was moved, even ignoring the hot breath that Morong Qingqing blew into his ear. While walking, Yi Chen pondered for a while, then said, I don't know what happened here, but I don't think it was anything good. The fall of the True Water Palace is most likely related to this, and the ruins have become an ominous place. Should we tell them? Morong Qingqing asked. Yi Chen shook his head and said, even if we tell them, they will not leave. After all, exploring ruins is a dangerous thing. How could they be scared by a blurry shadow? Telling them now will only make them feel uneasy. Yi Chen used his soul eyes, so he could naturally see the blurry shadow as well. However, under normal circumstances, he could not sense where the shadow was. Morong Qingqing was different. She cultivated demon power, and she had the perfect demi-demon bloodline, so she was very sensitive to dark things. Among the group, only Morong Qingqing could sense the shadow watching them. Yeah, that makes sense. Morong Qingqing nodded. Alright, no matter if the shadow is a human or a ghost, it will be exposed one day. At that time, we will act according to the situation. Yi Chen was not too afraid of this kind of evil being. His destruction sword intent and immortal sword intent were not to be trifled with, and were specialized in dealing with formless evil beings. The road was full of twists and turns, and before long, they had passed through a series of buildings and arrived in front of a magnificent, cold, and dignified tower. The base of this tower was more than 10 times the size of an ordinary manor. It was 1,000 meters tall, and had a total of 33 floors. It was like a giant's tower. This tower was also the tallest building in the ruins. On the door of the tower's first floor, 3 words were carved, Mysterious Yin Tower. Mysterious Yin Tower. Could this ruin be the residence of the True Water Palace's Life and Death King? Jin Wanshuang guessed. At its peak, True Water Palace had 1 titled monarch and 13 life and death kings. Its reputation was like a rainbow, like the sun in the midday sky. As a life and death king, his position was naturally the most respected. Controlling a faction was nothing out of the ordinary. The mysterious Yin King is already dead. There must be all of his wealth in this tower. The brother Daer Xiong laughed heartily. The old man said, whether it's mysterious Yin King or not, we can't be sure. However, the Yin Qi in this tower is too dense. It's almost the densest place in this ruin. It's very ominous. If you're afraid, you can leave. I have to enter this tower no matter what. Ba was the same as his brother, not knowing what fear was. This old man has lived for a long time. How could I be afraid of death? I just don't want to die in vain. The old man didn't lower himself to Ba's level. Lin Yuxuan said at this moment. The tower contains great treasures. This is 80 to 90% certain. I'll definitely go in and take a look. Otherwise, this trip would be a waste. Lin Yuxuan was also a person with great fortune. The reason why he could have the strength he had today was because he had many fortunes and obtained many treasures. Therefore, in his eyes, the mysterious Yin Tower was a land of treasures. As for the danger, that was normal. Without danger, there was no value in exploring this place. Everyone. As the nominal leader of this team, Jin Wanshuang spoke. The mysterious Yin Tower is basically the most valuable place in this ruin. And the reason we came here is also for the treasures. I agree to enter this tower. If there is anyone who doesn't agree, you can wait outside, or you can explore other places on your own. Jin Wanshuang had made his stance clear. Everyone knew that they had to enter. If they stayed outside, what if they ran into other people? As for exploring other places, it would be even more dangerous if they went alone. After all, everyone could see that this place was not a peaceful place. Therefore, no matter how dangerous the tower was, entering was an inevitable choice. As for other situations, they could think about it later. Chapter 791. The door of the tower was filled with evil qi, as if it was the door to hell. Vaguely, there was an extremely cold and ominous qi. Even if Sea of Souls realm warriors stood in front of the tower, they would not be able to help but shiver, not to mention going in. But it did not include the 9 of them. They were not only half-step king warriors, but also almost invincible among them. Unless it was a life and death realm warrior, it would not be easy for anyone to kill them, and they would have to pay for it. Although they did not like this ominous qi, they were not afraid of it. The road to life and death realm was already rough and full of danger. How could a mere ominous qi scare them? Crack! Pushing open the door, the 9 walked in. After the 9 entered, the door closed automatically, letting out a sound that seemed to come from the underworld. Swoosh! When the 9 of them first entered, the first floor was as dark as ink, so dark that they couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. However, very quickly, the sound of burning flames could be heard. With the 9 of them as the starting point, 2 rows of faint green flames lit up, sticking to the walls and extending into the distance. Not long after, the first layer was shrouded in a faint green light. It was neither bright nor dim, only icy cold. Yichen casually glanced at the flames. Suddenly, his pupils shrank as he said word by word. These flames are lit from the white skulls. What? Hearing him, everyone looked toward the nearest flames. On the wall, a rusty chain was holding a white skull. There was a hole on top of the skull, which was the Baihui meridian. A beam of flame was released from inside, burning steadily, because the flame was not that bright, and the light was directed outward. The surface of the wall was still pitch black, which was hard to see through with naked eyes. Therefore, the white skull was naturally not that eye-catching. At this moment, with Yi Chen's reminder, everyone finally noticed this detail, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. White skulls lighting up. This is an extremely evil method. The elder frowned as he looked around from time to time. Lin Yuxuan said, "Could it be that the True Water Palace is an evil sect? That's why it has fallen silently after provoking the wrath of the heavens. There's no way to prove it, but judging from the current situation, it's quite possible. Perhaps the True Water Palace tried to use some forbidden technique and triggered a terrible backfire." Jin Wanshuang pondered. Alright, who cares about the skeletons lighting up the lantern? Evil sects. We're not here to judge the quality of the True Water Palace. We're here for treasures. The twins were getting impatient. That's true. Let's continue. Jin Wanshuang took a step forward. About an hour after the 9 of them entered the mysterious Yin Tower, a group of acquaintances arrived outside the tower. This group of acquaintances was Shi Xiaobao and the others. After they were teleported out of the palace, they rested for 2 days before heading to the mysterious Yin Tower. the tallest building in this ruin. They were one step slower than Yi Chun and the others. Why is this mysterious Yin Tower filled with Yin Qi? The middle-aged woman said hesitantly. Don't follow us if you're scared. Shi Xiaobao led the group, and pushed open the door of the tower without hesitation and walked in. The middle-aged woman bit her teeth and followed them. The first 18 floors of the tower were empty. Yi Chun and the others went straight to the 19th floor, which was much more sinister than the 18 floors below. Waves of cold wind blew over from nowhere, making everyone's hair stand on end. Everyone be careful. Jin Wanshuang's voice came from the front. Yeah, the Yin Qi here is even more intense, and there are strange vibrations coming from time to time. Don't be careless. The elder was the most cautious one in the team, but it was not because he was afraid of death. People who were afraid of death were not necessarily cautious, and those who were cautious mostly did not want to die in vain. The twin brother Daer Xiong said, It is not that I am arrogant and want to mess with you guys, but I think we do not need to worry about anything at all. We are almost invincible below the life and death realm. Only life and death realm warriors would be able to kill us. Of course, if we run into them, it would be our bad luck. No matter how cautious we are, it would be pointless. Besides them, I cannot think of anyone who could kill this many of us at once. The elder felt that these two little bastards were thinking too highly of him, so he could not help but say, Then what about the top half-step king warriors? If they want to kill you, it should not be hard, right? Daer Xiong froze, unable to say anything for a while. Although they were all considered to be invincible below life and death realm in their own territories, there was still a gap between them and the top half-step king warriors, because the top half-step king warriors were invincible below life and death realm. If a top half-step king warrior wanted to kill any one of them, it would not be too hard. Daer Xiong explained, although the top half-step king warriors could kill me, they would not be able to take on all of us at the same time. Then, do you think there would only be one enemy? The elder sneered. Seeing the two start bickering, Yi Chun faintly smiled. The old man's worry was not without reason. Although they were elites of Four Corner Island, if they encountered a strongest half-step king, they would not be able to win. Apart from a strongest half-step king, there were too many things that could kill them. For example, some mysterious traps, some strange poisons, and some destructive energies could all kill them. The reason why the twin brothers were so fearless was probably because they thought that with their powerful bodies, they would not have to worry about ambushes. Alright, you guys are really annoying. Lin Yushuan could not stand this kind of argument anymore, so he said with a low voice. On the 19th floor, there was no danger at all. On the 20th floor. On the 27th floor. Damn. There is nothing here. Don't tell me there is nothing up there as well. After another 7 floors, everyone still did not encounter anything. There was neither treasure nor danger, so it was very boring. At this moment, everyone would rather have a little bit of danger. At least, they would not have nothing to do. Before they knew it, they had already reached the 32nd floor, which was only one wall away from the highest floor. And on the 32nd floor, something finally appeared. On top of a square stone platform, there were 4 items: a great sword, a demonic staff, a purple gold bowl, and a jade ruler. Besides that, there was also an ink painting right next to the 4 items. It was half open, and seemed to be drawing a human figure. Great item. Everyone's eyes brightened. The mysterious Yin Tower had completely disappointed them. They thought that this place might not have mountains of treasures, but at least there would be some. However, they didn't see a single treasure on the way. From the 1st floor to the 31st floor, it was completely empty, and the place was full of Yin Qi. Right then, seeing the 4 great items on the stone platform, everyone's mind started to work, and the way they looked at each other became more unfriendly. There were only 4 great items, and being able to be on the 32nd floor meant that they were not normal items. But there were 9 people here, so no matter how they divided them, it would not be fair. In that case, there was only one way to solve this problem. Yi Chun sensed the change in the atmosphere, so he said, "We do not know the rank of the great items yet. There is no need to fight to the death." Chapter 792. The 4 items on the stone platform had all hidden their power. From the outside, it was impossible to tell what rank they were. However, since they were placed on the 32nd floor of the tower, they should not be lower than demi-extreme rank items. With Yi Chen's guess, they might even be pseudo-extreme rank items. Of course, before confirming the rank, it would be a bit impatient to make such a big fuss about it. He is right. Jin Wanshuang took a deep breath, his eyes calming down. Then how do we confirm the rank of the items? I do not trust other people to do it. Even if we want to confirm it, I will have to do it myself. Lin Yushuan said. Yeah, who knows if the first one to confirm it would take it for himself or not. Although he would not dare to take all of them. But if he could take 1 or 2, and leave the tower, while everyone else is fighting for the rest of the items, no one would be able to do anything to him. Dare Xiong's thoughts were not as simple as they looked. Very simple. We will attack the items from afar, and the items will release their own power to block out the attack. The items had their own power as well, but it was passive and could not attack on its own. However, if it was attacked, it would still activate its own power to block out the attack. Yi Chen said lightly. Alright, let's do that. Yi Chen's suggestion was approved by everyone. Let me do it. Jin Wanshuang stood out. His right fist tightened as he threw out a punch. Pooh! A light exploding sound appeared in the air, as that unstoppable fist power shattered the square stone platform. The aggressive chi attack landed on the walls of the tower and bounced back, blowing the 4 items and the painting into the air of the 32nd floor. Who? The great sword, the evil falling stick, the purple gold bowl, and the jade ruler all released a powerful aura, shining with different colors. Among them, the sword was shining with a red light, the evil falling stick was gold, the purple gold bowl was purple gold, and the jade ruler was pure white. The 4 colors interweaved together, and the air of the entire tower's 32nd floor became as sticky as water. The strange thing was that the paper of the ink wash painting was made of some unknown material. Under the impact of the precious weapon's power and the violent chi, it was not damaged at all. It also did not emit any light. It was just that the ink wash painting, on the other hand, was completely opened up by the external force. It was a picture of climbing high and looking far away. Pseudo-extreme great artifacts, all 4 of them. Everyone was breathing heavily. Boom! Almost at the same moment when everyone confirmed the grade of the artifacts, an intense cyan energy whirlwind appeared. Lin Yushuan's eyes turned red as his Zhen Yuan burst out, producing a powerful destructive power. It instantly shattered the space solidification created by the power of the 4 pseudo-extreme grade artifacts, then shot out like a sharp arrow, with an unstoppable momentum. How dare you steal our treasures? The twin brothers roared as their muscles tightened. Their skin shone with a solid light as they bent their knees and bounced out like 2 gorillas. Their speed was not much slower than Lin Yushuan's. At the same time, they took out their own weapons, ready to fight at the critical moment. The 3 reacted fast, but the others were not slow either. Jin Wanshuang's body shone with the silver light as he turned into a metal man, following closely behind. His body and his fists were his weapons, and his eyes were just like metal, cold and emotionless. The elder's movement art was fast and agile. As his black robe spread out, he looked like a huge bat. At this moment he would not let go of the treasure. Whoever dared to stop him would not be able to blame him for being merciless. Meanwhile, the girl in yellow that Yi Chen could not see through frowned slightly. She actually crossed her arms in front of her chest and took a step back. She did not plan to fight for the artifact. Just like the girl in yellow, the cold-looking teenager did not go up to fight for the artifact either. He seemed to think that he did not have much hope since he had not fully recovered yet. Of course, this was just what the others thought. In fact, deep down in his heart, he was more afraid of Yi Chen. The weapon he wanted was that great sword with the red light. However, Yi Chen was also a sword artist. When the 2 met, there would definitely be a battle. Right now, he could not compete with Yi Chen. Yi Chen, I am not going. You should go now. Morong Qingqing frowned and shook her head. Yi Chen studied the girl in yellow, then looked at Morong Qingqing. He seemed to have understood something, so he said, All right. A pair of sword wings appeared on his back. Yi Chen's body flashed like a beam of sword light flashed through the sky, catching up to the 5 people in front of him. Lin Yuxuan was the first one to fight for the artifact after all. He reached out his hand, wanting to grab the only long weapon among the 4 artifacts. Let go. The twin brothers also had their eyes on the evil weapon. The older brother Dare Xiong waved his huge axe and hacked towards Lin Yuxuan. Damn it! Lin Yuxuan had no choice but to raise his bronze halberd to block the attack. His whole body was blown away. Brother, I will help you. You go get it. Dare Xiong said to Dare Ba. All right. Dare Ba growled and jumped towards the evil weapon. Forgive me. This evil weapon is also my first choice. Jin Wanshuang, who had turned into a silver metal man, threw a punch at Dare Ba. If you want to pass this, ask me. Dare Xiong blocked in front of him and raised his axe, blocking the fist power. Hee, I only want that purple gold bowl. The elder smiled slightly and set his eyes on the purple gold bowl above the evil weapon. With his movement art, he would be able to get it within a second. In your dreams. Although Lin Yuxuan wanted the evil weapon more, it did not mean that he could ignore the other great artifacts. He stabbed out dozens of times with his bronze halberd, and a green dragon roared. Dang! The weathered old man and Lin Yuxuan clashed head-on. The shockwave rippled out, forcing everyone to take a step back. The 4 artifacts and the standing tall gazing painting also flew up into the air, messing up their order. Shoo! At this moment, a streak of sword light flashed past, heading for the tower view painting, and the treasured sword that was glowing red. Brat, stop! Darebo was almost about to get the staff, but who would have thought that after the shockwave, the staff would be blown away again? Seeing that Yi Chun was about to get the great sword and the painting, he grinned and waved his 2 blades, throwing out 2 beams of blade light. Shadow explosion. His body exploded in the air as Yi Chun turned into countless shadows and spread out. The blade light flashed, killing a huge amount of shadows. Meanwhile, Yi Chen's real body was only a couple of steps away from the painting. When chasing 18 strikes, Dare Ba's attack missed, and the elder's attack followed up. The black short stick in his hand created countless shadows, attacking towards Yi Chun. Ting! 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 Yi Chun and the elder exchanged dozens of attacks, but neither of them could do anything to the other. All of a sudden, the 32nd floor of the tower turned into a mess. The 6 people who were fighting for the great weapons did not want the other to get it, so they attacked each other. Sometimes, even though they were like fire and water, they would still join hands to attack each other. Human nature is evil. Leaning against the wall of the tower, the lady in yellow sneered. Morong Qingqing said, You don't want to fight for the great weapons because they have the evil destroying qi, which is not compatible with your beast power, right? Hee, I train the beast power, and you don't train Jin Yuan. If I am not wrong, you should have the perfect demi-demon bloodline of the demi-demon race. You train the famous demi-demon power, which makes you more sensitive to the evil destroying qi. Same to you. Morong Qingqing was not surprised that she knew her identity. She did not plan to hide anything anyway. The demi-demon race comes from the demons, and they like the dark side. Why are you with him? His sword qi is righteous and unbreakable, which is not compatible with your demon power. The lady in yellow blinked her eyes and asked curiously, Then tell me, where did the demi-demon race come from? Morong Qingqing asked back. The lady in yellow could not help but laugh. The human devil clan was naturally the result of intermarriage between a member of the devil race and a member of the human race. Since members of the devil race could marry with members of the human race, it was not strange for a member of the perfect devil bloodline to marry with a human. While the two were talking, the cold-looking youngster was sitting in the corner of the 32nd floor, calmly healing his wounds. This kind of unmoved state of mind was extremely rare. If it were someone else, they would have already been tempted by the 4 pseudo-extreme great artifacts, even if they knew they could not get them. He is very powerful. When he came, no one expected it. The yellow-robed woman scanned the crowd, and soon, Yi Chen caught her attention. In terms of strength, Yi Chen was indeed not weaker than anyone else. It should be known that among everyone present, Yi Chun had the lowest cultivation base, only at peak late sea of Soul Realm. His power has not been used yet. Morong Qingqing said lightly. Oh, the lady in yellow glanced at Morong Qingqing. Brother Yi, your power is not bad, but you are still a bit weaker than me. The four weapons overlapped with each other, bringing the battle to its climax. Among them, Jin Wanshuang and Yi Chun, who were the closest to each other, started to battle. Jin Wanshuang was one of the most powerful warriors in the team. Besides the lady in yellow who was slightly more powerful than everyone else, no one else seemed to be more powerful than him. His whole body shone with a bright silver light, as he attacked toward Yi Chun like a silver metal man. Hee, let's take out the weakest one first. Ling Yuxuan rolled his eyes, and also set his target on Yi Chun. No matter if it was for business or personal reasons, he felt that he should take out Yi Chun first. In terms of business, Yi Chun's cultivation was the weakest. Although his power was not weak, his protective Zhen Yuan was still a lot weaker, which would not give him an advantage. In terms of personal reasons, the relationship between Yi Chun and Morong Qingqing annoyed him a bit. It was the jealousy that men were born with. Therefore, making sure that Yi Chun could not get any great items would make him feel better. Raising his bronze battle halberd, Lin Yuxuan also attacked toward Yi Chun. Then us two brothers will also join in the fun. The twin brothers seemed to be careless, but they were actually very shrewd. 6 people were fighting for the weapons, and after one person was taken out, there were only 5 left, which made the difficulty much lower. The elder did not dare to snatch the weapons at this moment, fearing that he would anger the crowd and turn against him. With his power alone, he would definitely be heavily wounded. Seeing that the others were going to attack Yi Chun, he was naturally happy to do so. The black short staff shot out a staff shadow, attacking toward Yi Chun. All of a sudden, the 5 attacked Yi Chun together. Shameless, Morong Qingqing was enraged. It seems like I have to use that move. Yi Chun was helpless. He did not expect that this move would be forced out by his own people. Chapter 793. Fighting 1 against 5. None of the moves that Yi Chun had used before would be useful. Only the bewitching mirror shattering created from the space profound would be useful. The bewitching mirror shattering could condense the air into a mirror, and its attacking range could be big or small. It was a move that had no weaknesses. Although the bewitching mirror shattering was only 70 to 80% complete, it should be enough to deal with 5 experts at the same level as him. Holding the Thunder Disaster sword with both of his hands, Yi Chun instantly entered a calm and tranquil state. His eyes looked far away, as if the entire void was under his control. Meanwhile, the Thunder Disaster sword in his hand suddenly twisted and disappeared from everyone's sight. Perhaps it was just a moment, or maybe it was a long time, but Yi Chun waved out that seemingly slow but actually fast sword, causing the entire void to shake. Not good. The 5 of them screamed in their hearts at the same time. The space profound was too profound, and it had a mysterious connection with the time profound. Before Yi Chun waved out that sword, they already felt that time had slowed down a lot. It was so much so that their attacks were slowly approaching Yi Chun. When Yi Chun waved out that sword, time seemed to have frozen in their perception. Other than their thoughts, even their own movements had slowed down. Their hands and feet were tied, and their hearts were filled with panic. Their battle intent had dropped to a freezing point. Different from the 5, the yellow-robed woman, Morong Qingqing, and the cold-looking young man who had opened his eyes could clearly see that Yi Chun's sword had reached an extreme speed. It was obviously the 5 of them who had attacked first, but it was Yi Chun who had attacked first. Different positions, different sensations. This was the change brought about by the space profound. Without a sound, the void where the 5 of them were started to twist without any pattern. The 5 of them seemed to be in the same mirror, and their expressions kept changing. This mirror could shatter at any moment, and the 5 of them would naturally not be able to escape. Should I kill them? Yi Chun was a bit hesitant. Suddenly pung. In the mirror, Jin Wanshuang's position exploded, and illusory glass shards shot out in all directions. Jin Wanshuang, who was covered in silver light, spurted out a mouthful of blood and flew out with a pale face. Soon after, The weathered old man and the twin brothers broke free at the same time. Their faces were pale and filled with terror. The last one was Lin Yuxuan. Whether it was Zhen Yuan cultivation base, physical strength, or experience, he could not compare to the other four. The only reason he could come out was because the frozen mirror had a flaw. Even so, his injuries were extremely severe. Blood flowed out from all 7 of his orifices, and his body had been cut dozens of times by the illusory glass, dyeing his clothes red. Attacking 5 people at once is a bit of a stretch. Yi Chen was not surprised. Bewitching mirror shattering could kill any one of them, but attacking all 5 at once was a bit difficult. After all, these 5 were not ordinary people, but 5 experts on the same level as him. If it wasn't for the bewitching mirror shattering, containing the profound of space being too strange and frightening, how could it have almost killed them? How is this possible? Is space profound? How did it reach such a horrifying level? Jin Wanshuang still had lingering fear as he stared at Yi Chen blankly. Not only is the space profound this powerful, but this sword art created based on it is also too frightening. No matter how you look at it, there is no weakness at all. How could this be created by a young man? Compared to Jin Wanshuang, the elder was even more shocked by Yi Chen's creativity. Creating profound sense martial arts was a talent that was just as important as learning profound sense. The same space profound, and the same realm might not have the same power, which was the importance of creativity, although power was not everything. And some profound sense martial arts did not focus on power. No matter what, Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering had shocked the elder. The twin brothers, who had always been fearless, were also shocked. Derba said, "He actually wounded us too. Is he a strongest half-step king warrior? Even if he is not, he is almost there. It is a bit different." Derxiang had thought more than Derba. Just based on this attack alone, even a strongest half-step king warrior would have to avoid it. But in other aspects, Yi Chen was a lot weaker than them. Why? Lin Yuxuan was confused. He could not understand how Yi Chen, who was only a couple of years younger than him, could comprehend the space profound and create such a powerful sword art. With just one sword attack, he had made them lose the confidence to fight him. Condensing the air into a mirror. Good move. The lady in yellow sighed. The cold-looking young man hid away the shock on his face as he once again entered his healing mode. But this time it took him a long time to calm down. The space profound is 3 times more powerful than the normal profound, but it requires 9 times more Jin Yuan to use. It seems like I have to become a half-step king warrior as soon as possible. Only then will I have enough Jin Yuan to use. Otherwise, if I run into a powerful enemy, I will not be able to use it that many times. Letting out a breath, Yi Chen's body flashed, flying toward the painting and the great sword that was shining with red light. He was determined to get these 2 things. Seeing this, the 5 gritted their teeth. Although they could not compete with Yi Chen, if Yi Chen wanted to take all the treasures, they would have to try. After all, these were pseudo-extreme rank weapons. If they missed it this time, they would not know when they would get to see them again. The 5 stared at Yi Chen with a complicated expression. Shoo! The painting was taken over by Yi Chen and thrown into his storage ring. Then, Yi Chen grabbed the great sword that was shining with red light in his hand. Holding it in his hand, he saw 2 righteous and ancient characters carved on the sword's body. Evil vanquishing. Good sword. Yi Chen could sense that the sword qi of the evil vanquishing sword was very righteous, which was very compatible with his sword art. There was no rejection at all. With the 2 treasures in his hand, Yi Chen started to study the other treasures. The evil vanquishing stick was more than 2 meters long, shining with a golden halo. It gave people a peaceful feeling, but also contained a horrifying evil vanquishing power. It was as if holding it in one's hand, one would not need to be afraid of any evil beings. Not far away from the stick was a purple gold bowl that was the size of a bowl. It looked like it was made from purple gold, but Yi Chen knew clearly that normal purple gold would not be able to make pseudo-extreme rank weapons. The last treasure was the jade ruler, which was pure white in color and 2.5 feet long. An auspicious beast was drawn on its surface, stepping on clouds and looking peaceful. Seeing Yi Chun studying the other great weapons, Jin Wanshuang and the other four started to get nervous. They did not want to fight with Yi Chun, but they would not give up on the great weapons either. Therefore, they were very concerned about Yi Chun's choice. Would he give up on the great weapons? Or would he take all of them? Don't worry, I am not as greedy as you think. Yi Chun did not go for the last three great weapons. First, he had already gotten the painting and the evil vanquishing sword. Second, these five were not easy to mess with. If he pushed them too hard, they might fight to the death with him. He could not guarantee that he would not be able to kill all five of them at the same time. Third, even if he had the power, he would not be able to guarantee that he would not die. Third, even if he had the power, he would still give it to them. For him, those three great weapons would have to be traded anyway. It would be too much of a waste to keep them. Holding the evil vanquishing sword, Yi Chun flew to Morong Qingcheng. Huff! Jin Wanshuang and the other four let out a breath at the same time. Their tense nerves finally relaxed as they looked at Yi Chun with a bit of gratitude. If it were them, they would most likely take them all in one go. After all, pseudo-extreme rank great weapons were extremely precious. Even if they did not need them themselves, they could leave them to the auction house and sell them. Or they could go to some high-class market and trade for what they wanted. Brother Yi, Jin Wanshuang apologized to you. Also many thanks. Jin Wanshuang held his fists together and said, Me too. The elder smiled bitterly. Yi Chun nodded slightly and did not say anything. In this world, the most important thing was still power. As for what these people were thinking, it did not matter. Getting rid of Yi Chun, this powerful enemy, the five started a new round of competition. Eventually, it was Jin Wanshuang who was a bit more skillful and got the evil subduing stick. Then the elder also got the purple gold bowl and left the battlefield. Lin Yushuan was alone, so how could he be an opponent for the twin brothers? The jade ruler was taken away by them, leaving him with nothing. Lin Yushuan was expressionless as he did not look at the others. Instead, he looked at the stairs from the 32nd floor to the 33rd floor. There might be more treasures up there. There was no soul mark left inside the evil shattering sword, so Yi Chun easily left his own mark on it. He then poured in his Zhen Yuan and gradually familiarized himself with some of the sword's functions. Shoo! The evil shattering sword extended out a meter-long sword light, making a swishing sound. Morong Qingqing squinted her eyes and took 2 steps back uncontrollably. The evil shattering sword light made her a bit uncomfortable. This sword's evil shattering power is too powerful. I'm afraid it is the best of the 4 great weapons. No wonder you feel uncomfortable. Yi Chun put the sword back into its sheath and kept away the sword light. Swords were originally the most aggressive. Evil subduing stick for subduing demons and devils, purple gold bowl for suppressing and collecting, and the jade ruler for defense. Its offensive power was not as powerful as the other 2. Yeah, I wonder who left it here. Morong Qingqing said. Yi Chun looked at the 33rd floor and said, I hope it is not what I think it is. Not only did the evil shattering sword not have a soul mark, even the stick, purple gold bowl, and the jade ruler did not have any. With these 3 treasures, Jin Wanshuang, the elder, and the twin brother Daerxiong's power had increased drastically again. Even if they ran into a top half-step king warrior, they would be able to fight for a bit. Since you all have gotten your weapons, it is time to go to the 33rd floor. Right then, the lady in yellow said, There are already 4 pseudo-extreme rank weapons on the 32nd floor. We have to go to the 33rd floor for sure. The twin brothers were not satisfied yet. Although the jade ruler was good, it did not fit their taste. If they could get 1 or 2 more powerful pseudo-extreme rank weapons, it would be even better. Let's go. Jin Wanshuang held the stick with both of his hands, his aura getting even more powerful. Letting out a breath, the cold-looking teenager stood up. His wounds had already recovered to 80%, and he would not just stand by and watch anymore. Chapter 794. Following the stairs, the 9 of them walked up to the 33rd floor. Lin Yushuan was walking at the front. Under the attack of Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering, he had been wounded the most. But different from the cold-looking young man, his wound was not one that went through his body. Therefore, after swallowing a precious pellet that he had prepared himself, he had almost recovered. As a half-step king warrior, some of the pellets that could heal wounds in a short period of time were still available to him. But it was also because of this that the top-rank soul stones and treasures were even more important to him, since the consumption was way too high. Yi Chun had his evil-shattering sword on his waist as he followed at the back with Murong Qingcheng. The 33rd floor. I am afraid it will not be that easy. Yi Chun had a feeling that the 4 pseudo-extreme rank evil-shattering items and the painting were not just randomly placed on the 32nd floor. They must have some other purpose. The tower was full of evil qi, and up until now, no one had run into any danger. But this unknown 33rd floor might be full of danger. Yi Chun had given up on the other 3 evil-shattering items because of this reason. After all, he could not control all 4 of them by himself. Even if he could, he would not be able to use their full power. And for Murong Qingcheng and the Lady in Yellow, one had the perfect demi-demon bloodline, and the other was an unknown beast. Naturally, they would not be able to touch the evil-shattering items. At the end of the stairs, everyone stopped. In front of them was a stone door. The surface of the stone door was engraved with complicated lines. These lines were of different colors, and there were a total of 5 colors: gold, cyan, green, red, and yellow. The 5 colored lines intertwined with each other, and finally converged at the center of the stone door. There was a groove there, and there was a faint 5-colored light flickering, connecting the 5 colored lines. This is a 5-elemental spell. It needs 5 elemental energies to open. Jin Wanshuang had done some research on spells, so he said, "There are 9 of us here, and only 3 of us have trained 5 elemental Jin Yuan. We cannot gather all 5 elemental energies." The elder frowned. Jin Wanshuang had trained metal element Jin Yuan, Lin Yushuan had wood element Jin Yuan, and the lady in yellow had water element Jin Yuan. The remaining fire and earth element Jin Yuan would not be enough. Yi Chun said, "You should be able to use something else to replace it, right? Like energy crystals?" Jin Wanshuang nodded. Indeed. Not all elemental Jin Yuan is needed. Elemental energy crystals will do as well. With that, Jin Wanshuang took a step forward and said, "I'll pour in metal Jin Yuan first and see how much is needed." Placing his right hand inside the groove, Jin Wanshuang circulated his Jin Yuan and slowly poured it in. As Jin Wanshuang poured in his metal attribute Jin Yuan, the golden lines on the stone door suddenly lit up and slowly extended. After a while, Jin Wanshuang said, "This won't do. This 5-elemental formation requires too much energy. Even if I use up all of my Jin Yuan, it won't be enough." Everyone realized that the golden lines on the stone door had only lit up by less than a tenth. It looked like it was still lacking 90%. Looks like I'll have to use energy crystals. The 5 elements formation required too much energy. Even if there were 5 people here who cultivated true essence of the 5 elements, it would not be enough. In other words, if the 9 of them had not obtained a large number of energy crystals, it would have been impossible for them to enter the 33rd floor. The others would not have been able to do it either. How about this? Everyone gather 900 metal energy crystals and 1,000 wood, water, fire, and earth energy crystals respectively. The excess will be returned to everyone, and if it's not enough, everyone will make up for it. Energy crystals were extremely precious. 1 upper-grade energy crystal was equivalent to 1,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Asking 1 or 2 people to provide it was obviously unfair. After gathering all the energy crystals, Jin Wanshuang threw them in. One could see that the groove at the center of the stone door could actively absorb the 5 elemental energy from the energy crystals. Meanwhile, the 5 colored lines on the stone door gradually lit up. With the groove as the center, they spread out in all directions, slow and steady. Not enough. Gather another 100 energy crystals for each element. Jin Wanshuang turned around and said, there was still a short section of the 5 colored lines on the stone door that had yet to light up. Here, everyone gathered another 500 energy crystals, 100 for each element. Receiving the crystals, Jin Wanshuang threw them all in. Buzz! The 5 colored lines on the stone door all lit up, and the entire stone door shone with a 5-colored radiance. The radiance interweaved together, forming a complex 5 elements formation in the air. Rumble. The stone door opened with a sound. This 5 elements formation is indeed a glutton. It took 5,400 energy crystals. Derba made a face. 5,400 energy crystals would be equivalent to 5,400,000 top-rank spirit stones. Normal life and death realm warriors would not be able to break through it in a short period of time. According to the energy that the 5 elements formation had devoured, Yi Chen thought of something else. With the protection of this 5 elements formation, not to mention half-step king warriors, even normal life and death realm warriors would not be able to break through it in a short period of time. As for whether or not they would be able to tear open the surreal space and go in directly, he did not know. The stone door opened completely, and a wave of powerful evil wind blew out. Although the 9 of them had activated their protective Zhen Yuan, they were still blown back a couple of steps by this evil wind. The blood in their bodies seemed to have been frozen, and the coldness was so intense that it even threatened their souls. What the 9 of them did not know was that the second they opened the stone door, a 5-colored light beam shot out from the top of the tower. All of a sudden, it broke through the 300,000 meters deep ocean and arrived above the ocean. It then kept going up, tearing apart the surprising sky and the extreme void sky. No one knew where it would end up at. Within a radius of tens of thousands of miles, everyone could see this 5-colored beam of light that connected the bottom of the sea and the sky. Most of the people on Four Corner Island, that were tens of thousands of miles away, could also sense the fluctuations here. However, because they were too far away, they had no way of knowing where the fluctuations were coming from. 5 elements energy. Far away from the Four Corner Island, a black chi appeared, and the demi-demon king of the demi-demon race appeared. He closed his eyes and carefully sensed the vibration of the 5 elements energy coming from far away. This is the power vibration after the seal was broken. There must be some kind of great treasure appearing. The elder in black hesitated for a second, but he soon made up his mind to give up on looking for the perfect beauty demon bloodline for now. This kind of fortune could only be found by luck, so he would get the treasure first before looking for the bloodline. Pop. The black chi disappeared, and the elder in black disappeared from where he was standing. The 9 of them still did not know that their opening of the 5 elements spell had already attracted the attention of a demi-demon king. Right now, they had already entered the 33rd floor. The moment everyone entered the 33rd level, all the always-on lamps lit up. At the same time, everyone's gazes fell on the 5 coffins in the center of the 33rd level. Of these 5 coffins, the one in the middle was the largest, and there were 4 smaller coffins surrounding it at its 4 corners. It was unknown what kind of wood the coffins were made of, but the evil chi coming out of them was very dense. Even from far away, one could feel that the evil chi was trying to invade their bodies and freeze their blood. There is a great item on each coffin. The twins' eyes brightened. If the items on the 32nd floor were all pseudo-extreme rank items, then what about the 33rd floor? Not to mention the others, just the one in the middle would most likely be an extreme rank item. Extreme rank item. Apart from Yi Chen and a few others, everyone else's eyes were burning with passion, wishing that they could rush over and snatch it. The first one to move was Lin Yuxuan. Among the 6 people fighting for the items on the 32nd floor, he was the only one who did not get one, which made him very unwilling. In the past, he had always had a smooth sailing life. Whenever he joined a team, he would be the most dazzling existence. However, in this team, he realized that he was at the bottom. None of them were weaker than him, and there were even a few who were obviously stronger than him. This was something that he could not accept no matter what. Shoo! His protective Zhen Yuan shone as Lin Yuxuan rushed toward the coffin closest to him. Don't be impulsive. Jin Wanshuang and the elder warned Lin Yuxuan at the same time. Lin Yuxuan sneered, but his speed did not decrease. Got it! With a flash, Lin Yuxuan appeared next to a coffin on the outer edge and grabbed the item on it. It was a battle halberd, one of the weapons he wanted the most. So cold. Grabbing the halberd, Lin Yuxuan suddenly shivered. This halberd seemed to be made from 10,000 years old black ice. An extremely cold yin qi flowed along his palm and extended to his arm. His entire right arm was covered in a thin layer of blue ice. It was bone-chilling. Boom. All of a sudden, the lid of the coffin in front of Lin Yuxuan flew up, as if someone had blasted it away from the inside. Shortly after, a silhouette sat up. It was a middle-aged man with an extremely pale face. His eyes were wide open, but there were no pupils, only the whites of his eyes. Not good. Lin Yuxuan knew that things had gotten serious, so he hurried to retreat. However, with the yin qi invading his body, his reaction speed was a bit slower. Pa! The middle-aged man's hand grabbed Lin Yuxuan's right arm and pulled. Ah! Lin Yuxuan screamed out. His entire right arm had been torn off, but there was no blood, as it had all been frozen by the yin qi. After tearing off Lin Yuxuan's right arm, the battle halberd landed in the middle-aged man's hand. He jumped out and waved the halberd in the air, cutting off Lin Yuxuan's head. Resurrection of the dead? Yi Chen squinted his eyes, his hand gripping the handle of the evil vanquishing sword. The middle-aged man grinned, and an endless suction force burst out from his body. Lin Yuxuan's warm blood spurted out from the cut on his neck, and was sucked into the middle-aged man's mouth. As the blood flowed into his body, everyone noticed that the middle-aged man's face was a bit rosier. At least, his skin was not as pale as a dummy's, it was more elastic. Boom, boom, boom. The middle-aged man stood firmly on the ground. He waved his hand, and except for the coffin in the middle, the other 3 coffins were all blown away. The treasures on the coffins fell into the coffins. The next moment a shocking scene occurred. In each of the 3 coffins a figure sat up. They were the evil old man, the stocky woman, and the skinny young man. The 3 of them held their respective treasures and jumped out of the coffins. They stood side by side with the middle-aged man. Endless yin qi erupted from their bodies, freezing everything. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.